Hey everyone, welcome back to Living in Southwest Florida with Sarah and Denise. If you're new here, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Denise, and we're local realtors here in Southwest Florida, and we help people relocate to this beautiful area every day.
On this channel, we talk about what it's really like to live in Southwest Florida, from neighborhood tours, relocation tips, real estate insights, and all the things we wish somebody had told us before making the move.
So whether you're planning your next move next week, a month, or just starting to explore, you're in the right place.
And today, we're tackling a topic that comes up in almost every conversation we have with buyers moving here.
Flood zones.
I swear, Denise, if I had $1 for every time somebody told me they didn't want anything to do with a flood zone, I'd be retired.
It's so true. I think people hear the word Florida and they automatically assume you're in a flood zone and you have to carry flood insurance.
Which obviously just isn't 100% true.
No.
So today we're going to break down what a flood zone actually is, the difference between X, AE, VE, when insurance is required, and how you can make an informed decision without letting fear make that decision for you.
Our goal isn't to tell you what you should do.
It's to educate you.
Yeah.
So you can decide what's right for you and your family.
So if flood zones have been keeping you up at night while you're planning your move,
grab a cup of coffee because get buckled in because we're going to talk about it.
If you find our information helpful, don't forget to subscribe.
We share new videos every week about living in Southwest Florida, our local communities, any relocation tips, and what it's like to really call this area home.
All right, let's jump right into probably one of the biggest misconceptions we hear.
Do all homes in Florida flood?
They do not. They do not all flood. I think that's probably one of the number one things people get wrong when they are trying to relocate here.
And I agree with that. I can't tell you how many times I get calls from people who only want to look at properties not in a flood zone. And I have to explain that while Florida isn't one big flood zone, we can educate them on that.
Yeah, all the different types. Some are considered lower risk, and some areas have a higher probability of flooding. You're dealing with X, AE, and VE flood zones.
And I think that's where people start to panic because they don't really know what those numbers, those letters and numbers mean. They hear X, they hear AE, they hear VE, and immediately they just assume it's bad. So let's simplify it and start with an X flood zone. They're typically considered the lowest risk, and often these are the homes buyers specifically ask us to look for because they do not require flood insurance. That doesn't mean flooding is impossible. It just means that FEMA has considered them the lowest risk on the flood map.
I think that's an important distinction below as well. Lower risk doesn't mean no risk.
Right, exactly. And AE zones are, FEMA has identified as having a higher probability of flooding. And because of that, lenders will typically require a flood insurance policy. And I think this is where buyers immediately think, well, I don't want to live there. Right. But Denise, some of the most beautiful communities are in an AE flood zone.
They sure are. Waterfront homes, canal homes, boating communities. There are a lot of people who happily live in these areas every day. And for them, the lifestyle is worth the additional cost of flood insurance.
Right. VE zones is another one. These are generally impacted by storm surge. They're more coastal properties.
Right.
And people are there all the time. And I think it just, it doesn't mean you shouldn't buy there. It just simply means you need to understand exactly what you're purchasing.
Right. I think that's really the theme of our entire conversation today is just understanding, not fear.
Right. I 100% agree with that. So let's talk about flood insurance because I think that's another area where people get really confused and they assume flood insurance is included with their homeowners insurance policy.
That's not usually always the case. Flood insurance is typically a separate policy.
And I think that's really important to understand because when you're purchasing a home in an X zone where flood isn't required by your lender, you may still decide to carry that flood policy.
Exactly. Yep. Everybody's comfort level is going to be different, and it's just a matter of, again, having the information.
Right. I think another thing is to talk about how much it actually costs for flood insurance.
Yeah. We can give an answer.
That.
The answer, it depends. Depends on the flood zone. What's the elevation of the home? The type of construction? How much coverage are you selecting? There are several factors involved.
Which is why we always recommend buyers obtain insurance quotes during the home buying process in the beginning stages because we never want somebody to fall in love with a home and realize that the insurance doesn't fit.
Right, right. working with a great insurance professional becomes a really, really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and buyers have a couple questions that they should ask if they're considering purchasing a home that's in a flood zone. You want to know, first of all, what flood zone are you in?
Mm-hmm.
Does the owner currently have flood insurance? What's the annual premium on that flood insurance? Has the previous owner experienced any flooding? And also, is there an elevation certificate available?
Those questions can really help you understand as a buyer what the bigger picture is.
And ultimately, it'll help you feel more confident about your decisions when you're purchasing in any flood zone. Another thing, Denise, that I want to ask you is this. If you were relocating here all over again, would you eliminate flood zone properties?
I wouldn't. Not now. I think it really depends on the property and the lifestyle that you want and the budget that you're setting. If my dream was to have a waterfront property with a boat in my backyard, I definitely wouldn't want to eliminate those opportunities. Just gathering the right information and making a decision that way.
And I feel exactly the same way because I felt like I only wanted to be in a non-flood zone. But there's also buyers who understand costs associated with living on the waterfront and that lifestyle, and neither decision is wrong. It's just about finding what works best for you.
Yeah, you just got to make your decision based on the education instead of fear.
So there's obviously some myths around flood zones, and myth number 1 is everything in Florida floods.
False. Florida has a variety of flood zones, just like we talked about, but not everything requires flood insurance.
But myth number 2, Denise, says if a house is in a flood zone, you shouldn't buy it.
Also false. Many people happily live in a flood zone. The key, again, is to understanding the risks and the costs involved.
But then, Denise, we have myth number 3, that flood insurance is always an outrageously expensive thing to take on.
That's also not necessarily true. Every property is different, and the only way to know is to get a quote.
But now we have myth number 4, and that's flood insurance and homeowners insurance are the same thing.
Definitely false. Flood insurance is generally a separate policy.
Well, I guess the conclusion to that is, at the end of the day, people live happily throughout Southwest Florida in a variety of flood zones, and the key is to understand the risk, the options, and make decisions that align with your goals and comfort level and your budget. Because what's really important through this relocation process is finding the right fit for you and your family.
That's true. We hope this video helped, and please reach out if you need anything or have any questions about flood zones, flood insurance.
And if you're considering a relocation to Southwest Florida, we would love to help you.
Thanks so much for stopping in, and feel free to subscribe and join us in more of our little chit chats.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.